one add-on. I have a resolution to approve an appropriation adjustment from general fund into emergency services for a payout.
So moved.
Dan, yes?
Yes.
That's all that I have.
Okay. So we have a public hearing first this morning for a rezoning application of RDJ Holdings. Are you going to present first? Okay. Can we do that? I mean, it's supposed to be 9:05.
I can talk really slow. Let's document that we started on time, so let's start on time. In
Okay.
case someone's running behind, needs to be here.
Okay. Let's see. While we're waiting,
I have something.
you do? Okay, go
I
ahead.
do. I wanted to acknowledge sadly that today is the last day that for our Children's Services Director, Susan. I'm super sad to see her go. I'm excited for her new opportunity and her chance to really expand her leadership. But Susan Walther has really served the department in the county well, and the children in Warren County, those who are in really vulnerable and tough positions due to no fault of their own. And so I just wanted to thank her for her service. She's been a really great friend to me and has been helpful as we've been trying to do better for our children who are in the foster and kinship systems. And so she's going to be missed by the county, and I wish her well.
100% agree. Yeah, she's been an ally, and that department can be very volatile for county commissioner groups, and it gets sometimes some really bad press, and ours has been very effective and has done a good job, and we've not had some of the issues that other folks unfortunately have had, and so, yeah, wish her well. She's done a good job.
So I got a minute or two.
Well, you know, it's
Closer.
9:04 now. Probably by the time you stand up and come back up, but how many people are here going to be speaking today? Anybody else here going to speak? Yeah. Do we need to, do they need to be sworn in?
No.
Okay, good enough. Go ahead. I think we're okay at this point. Are we not, Bruce?
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't work. Click on the, okay, yeah. All right, sorry. Okay, this is case number 2022-04, RDJ Holdings LLC, Wellbright. Representative East Jager are here and they will be speaking on the topic. The township is Union. The address is 2752 South State Route 42. The parcel ID is 1215-300-009-0. It is 19.971 acres, and there is 1,072 feet of frontage. It is currently a B1 PUD, and what we're asking today is to amend the PUD. The future land use does have it as low density residential. The existing land use is, as we stated, a PUD B1 for a welding shop. The Regional Planning Commission had their meeting on April 28th, and we'll get into their recommendation in a few minutes. Also, the Warren County Rural Zoning Commission had their meeting on May 3rd, and again, we'll get into their recommendation as well. Of course, today is before you, and it is for final approval. This is an aerial map showing the location. Some of you may be familiar. This is the old Theater 42 location. Denise and Rex purchased it from the previous owner and have some different ideas on what they want to do for the property. So this is the proposed. Currently, as you see, there is one existing building, and that is what they're doing the welding shop in. They're proposing adding 12,000 square feet to that to continue the welding business. Also across from the driveway there, they're adding a 40 by 100 agricultural building where they're going to have some small animals and then also machinery, of course, to maintain the property.
When I saw that, I thought it was oceanfront. I didn't know we had any here in Warren County.
This does show the floodplain and floodway.
Yeah.
So of course we will look into making sure that they meet with Molly at Soil and Water, making sure that they're not building in those areas. In the center is the home. They are proposing a new single-family dwelling. You do have those elevations there in front of you for that new single-family home. Also, they are proposing a 7,150 square foot facility or banquet center. Attached to that is a 30 by 40 deck or dock. And then south of that is also another 30 by 40 dock. There are some small cabins for overnight stays for this wedding event center. One thing, they do have the two docks. They will be using those. Both of them are very involved in different programs. Last weekend they had Hook a Fish event, which is for handicapped kids. So these docks will provide access to the water for those children who wish to fish. So the proposed, again, this is 19.9 acres. One thing I want to draw your attention to is the definitions. A cabin is a small dwelling, 500 square feet or less for temporary recreational use. Does have limited amenities. Number two, special events. And these are only events conducted entirely within a temporary structure, including open-air tents that are on site no longer than 4 consecutive days. Proposed. This is everything that is proposed and everything that is allowed. If it's not listed here, it is not allowed on this property at this point, unless they come back and they change that PUD before they do. So a single-family residence is permitted, metal fabrication welding shop. We are doing that site plan, of course, for that. Also a site plan for the wedding event center. Permitted is the special events that we just talked about, the 3 a year. If there's any more special events other than 3 a year, that is conditional use. And the 8 cabins or less is permitted. Anything over 8 cabins is a conditional use, and we go back before the BZA. Everything underneath that, the agricultural storage building, the livestock shelter, dock, gazebo, pump house, any open space uses, those are all permitted, of course. Maximum number of single-family dwellings, we are only allowing the 1 single-family home that they will be living in to maintain and take care of this property. The building height, of course, is 35 feet, that's district height. Setbacks and buffers, I don't know if you're familiar with this property, I think most of you are, but there is a large berm and vegetation in the front. It certainly exceeds our expectations for buffering. And then all the way around the property, the buffers meet or exceed those expectations. Open space is going to be 30% of the site. There are no sidewalks required along Sierra Forty 2, so we just know that there's any need for sidewalks on the property. Parking, Article 3, Chapter 3 of the Warren County Rural Zoning Code, that each use complies with parking standards may be increased or decreased by 5% or 1 space for occupants depending on the requirements of that banquet facility. Design standards, the buildings will be stick or metal buildings with panels, brick or stone veneer, siding, rough sawn lumber. And they're trying to do a more rustic look. Of course, those would come before you as well. Miscellaneous, a stormwater management plan will be submitted for review and approval by the Warren County engineers on this part of stage 3. Complies with the Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District, including extra sediment and erosion control measures if deemed necessary by the Warren County Water and Sewer Department. By the Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District. Compliance with the Warren County Water and Sewer Department requirements, and then compliance with the Warren County Health Department and the OEPA requirements. So in closing, the project narrative is that this PUD will allow the site to be transformed into a mixture of residential and commercial uses. The project will be completed in multiple phases over multiple years. The existing building is being used as a metal workshop. It was recently retrofitted with a new 3-phase electric service to allow a much-needed facility expansion, so that business is growing. The initial phase of the project will involve construction of a single-family home residence located on the eastern side of the property. The next phase will include the construction of 3,500 square foot with the ability to expand to the 7,150 allowable wedding event center. And the final phase then would be adding the existing building for the business, and that's a 80 by 150 steel building. The additional facilities and cabins, lake house or lake pump house, the dock attached to the pump house, all that would be done a little bit later. The development should commence within 1 year, and then the final approvals to be built out in approximately 5 years thereafter. They had some photos of inspiration that we wanted to include. This is from when they went to Indiana and they'd seen this particular facility. So this is where they got the ideas for the wedding and event center. As you can tell, it's kind of a courtyard where they get married in the gazebo, and then around are these small cabins that you can rent overnight.
Notification map, this is everyone that was notified within 500 feet of the site. Flooding and zoning.
Could you go back to that again?
Yes, sir.
So you say you informed everybody in that area about this?
Yes, everyone within 500 feet, sir.
Well, is there anybody within 500 feet?
There are some property owners, yes.
It was
I
also
think-
advertised in the newspaper.
Yeah, it's also advertised in the newspaper. We do have a sign still on the lot as well. The future land use map has this as low-density residential. And then at its meeting on April 28th, the Warren County Regional Planning Commission Executive Committee voted to recommend approval of the PUD Stage 1 to the Warren County Rural Zoning Commission with a vote of 11 yea, 3 nay, and 2 abstain. Course number 1, all plans and proposals of the applicant shall be made conditions of approval unless modified by one of the following conditions. Number 2, compliance with the Warren County Rural Zoning Code, which is in effect at the time of issuance of any zoning permit, so long as the underlying district provisions do not conflict with the intent of the PUD, the Warren County subdivision regulations, and the PUD Stage 1 approval conditions as approved by the Board of County Commissioners. 3, compliance with the standards for wedding and event facilities outlined in Section 3.206.17 of the Warren County Rural Zoning Code. The wedding and event facility is allowed as permitted use, subject to site plan approval by the county commissioners. 4, compliance with the standards of the B1 zoning for Section 2.205 of the Warren County Rural Zoning Code. Number 5, prior to Stage 3, approval for non-residential uses, the applicant submits a stormwater management plan approved by the Warren County Engineers Office. 6, ODOT shall determine if a traffic impact analysis is necessary and what uses necessitates the TIS. If a traffic impact analysis or study is required, it shall be done prior to Stage 3. Number 7, prior to Stage 2 approval for a non-residential use, the applicant submits a detailed site plan showing the amount of parking, lighting, signage, and landscaping. Number 8, one single-family dwelling is all that is permitted, and that shall be developed with the R1 standards. Number 9, prior to PUD Stage 2 approval for the cabins, the applicant submits a revised site plan illustrating the cabins located beyond or not within that floodplain. We did receive a email from the Union Township trustees asking to be involved in Stage 2, and I think Stan and RPC normally, anytime Stage 2 is submitted, they always send that out to the township trustees. In this case, the township trustee just wanted to make sure that they were involved and had some input. So the Warren County Rural Zoning Commission, Mr. Campbell made a motion to recommend approval to the Warren County Commissioners to amend the current PUD for parcel 12-300-300-009-00 with the RPC recommendations and with the Union Township trustees' input for Stage 2. Mr. Gibbs seconded that motion, and then all approved. Are there any questions for me at this time
So
before?
how many total buildings?
What they will be doing is an expansion to the existing business that's there. Then there's going to be an agricultural building where they're going to keep the machinery for maintaining the property and also maybe a few farm animals. Then the single-family residence, and then a wedding event center, and then maybe five, 6 small cabins to go along with that. You know, sometimes when people go to a wedding, they indulge sometimes and need a place to stay, and sometimes they also want to be able to get ready for the wedding and they want to have a place to do that. So this would allow that to happen.
So the cabins go with the event center, they're not discrete from the event center.
Exactly. When you rent the event for a wedding, then you're renting those cabins, so they cannot be done without each other. It's a combination. That's correct.
What was the knock on it in regional planning where some people didn't like it?
We can certainly ask Stan if there was.
Three people voted against it in regional planning. What was their problem with it?
I think it was just the floodplain, use of the floodplain.
Okay.
And again, certainly they'll work with Molly Conley at Warren County Soil and Water and make sure that that's not an issue.
Is the floodplain marked out on this document somewhere?
Yeah.
That shows some structure that goes in the flood plain.
so I don't even know what I'm looking at with the floodplain.
Okay.
Can you describe to me what we're looking at?
Yes, definitely. This is the lake area itself. This is floodplain. So what'll happen is they'll work with Molly, of course, but we'll bump this back and shift that. We do want this dock. It's important, as I stated, they do a lot of things with handicapped kids, so we want to make sure that this dock does reach the water, but we certainly don't want, anyone in the floodway or floodplain. So it will be bumped back, but these docks will be in the flood, probably in the floodway.
All right. Describe for me the prior zoning history of this property. Can you do that?
Unfortunately, I wasn't here, but I know Stan might be able to give us some more information. It was Theater 42. Stan, if you want to go into.
Come on, Commissioner. It was primarily performing arts uses for a theater and some other auxiliary uses, but the event center was actually permitted prior to this under the old zoning code. It was not labeled a wedding event center, but a banquet facility. So a similar use could have been developed under the previous.
So prior, I remember we had a rezoning of this property application that we addressed in June of 2017. That's when we permitted the
Correct, yes.
theater. Prior to that, was it zoned for an event center?
It was zoned not for an event center, but it was zoned B2. B2. And
So is
and
that
then-
where,
then-
is that what is currently being changed? It was from its prior zoning as B2 to B1 today?
it will still have a base zoning of B2, and within B2, we took forward changes to wedding event centers, and wedding event centers are currently permitted use in the B2 zoning district. Is that correct? Right.
This was a
So-
B2 PUD, we're just amending that PUD.
I thought it says current zoning B1.
I'm sorry, B1.
So that's my question. Was it B1 before the change we made to allow
Correct, yes,
it
it
to be used for a
was.
theater? Okay, so it was B1 at the time that we dealt with it in 2017. So is the change that's being made today, a change, there's been no changes since 2017, is that right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, and so the only change today is to allow a single-family residence and a structure for an event center or accommodate event center, is that basically
The
it?
change that are before you today is that this district will now permit a single-family residence, one single-family residence. It will also clarify what process a wedding event facility will go through. Because on the previous zoning, it had just a banquet center, and it didn't say what process that banquet center would go through. And it's also deleting some of the previous uses that were permitted, primarily the performing arts type uses.
Because a PUD is basically negotiated what the permitted uses are.
Correct, yes.
Correct? And so what, at its core, we're modifying an existing PUD with B1 base zoning. That all stays in effect. It's still B1 base zoning with a PUD. We're just modifying that pre-approved PUD to what, some sort of the neighborhood business commercial, where that's just allowing different usage inside of this PUD.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, and, is that it?
I think so, yes.
I didn't want to change the topic, but I just wanted to make sure you were finished with your presentation.
Oh, yes, I'm done, unless you have any other questions for me.
Any other questions? Okay, does the applicant want to speak to this?
Hello, I'm Denise Jager.
And I'm Rex Jager. Thank y'all for having us first off.
Okay, and where do you reside?
So our address is 2752 South US 42.
So you reside on this property?
You want to go in?
As much as we can, I have a welding shop there with a lot of money and equipment and security reasons. I tried to say we have an RV that we had brought over when we sold our previous home. And that's why we're trying to get this house done. That's, in my mind, all we're doing is adding a residence to the existing PUD. Now, I know there's a lot of stuff over my head that Michelle has been kind enough to help us with, but we just want to add a residence to this property to stay in.
Okay,
So we can stay on the property.
all right. Are you from the area
No,
originally?
we're from Butler County.
Okay.
Well, I guess that'd be the area, but I know
Where,
we're in
where
Warren
is this
County, so.
Butler County? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Texas, so sorry.
Well, how'd you find this place?
Luck? We've been looking for about 3 years, and we wanted to stay in the 71 and 75 split there. And she works with special needs kids and goes to Kentucky, to Wilmington, all over. So we wanted to stay there, and we, like I say, we looked over 3 years and happened to find it. We actually looked above the money we were looking for and found this property, made an offer, they declined it. And then, so we just bumped it up and worked out a deal, so.
Good for you.
Yeah, and our goal was to come to Warren County because our son has special needs as well. And just, there's more available in Warren County than there was in Butler County.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so, have you talked to any of your neighbors about what you're planning on doing, or do you know any of the neighbors?
Yeah, the Southwest Golf Ranch is our main neighbor. We've talked to Kevin, the owner of that. He knows what we're gonna be doing. The Tates up above the hill, we know those folks. And then Steve behind us, they just didn't want, every one of them said the same thing. We just wanna make sure you're not bringing a subdivision in, which we have no desire to do that, because that would just ruin the whole property, in our opinion.
Okay, so you say that you're in discussions with your neighbors, they're all in favor?
Oh, absolutely. Every one of them had the same concern.
All right, good. Well, I would have been more bothered by a welding shop than by what you are proposing right now, but that was apparently already permitted.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
Anything else? Well, there is actually. The event center that we're building, we're looking forward to that after the home is there, because we just had an event that was permitted, with Hook a Heart event on Saturday, and we fed over 300 people, and this is the first year it was just thrown together, because we haven't had to have an event since COVID hit, and everybody seemed to enjoy themselves, and we got a lot of response just with the throw-together event, so we're looking forward to getting the event center by the lakes. It's just gonna improve it dramatically.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to
Anything
meet you.
else?
Any questions? I mean, that's all we had.
Thank you.
Good.
I'm glad, good luck with the welding shop. I mean, that business is unbelievable, I'm sure. I mean, there's such a high demand for that. I'm glad you got one there. There's just not enough of that.
It's insane right now, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
I
In a
bet.
good way.
Absolutely,
Well,
yeah.
are you like a
We-
blacksmith or
We,
something?
no,
Pardon?
a welder. We need
Well, that's-
more welders.
Structural steel, miscellaneous steel, aluminum, mild, aluminum, titanium, Inconel, we do all that stuff.
Yeah, well,
And George Welding's up the street there. We are basically what they do, just on a lot smaller scale. That we do stuff that they don't look at. If that makes any sense.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank y'all.
Thank you.
all right, does anybody else want to speak to this application? No? Okay, do we have any, do we need to close the public hearing? Right, do we have a motion?
Second?
Yes. All right, is there any discussion about it?
I'd make a motion to approve the changes as brought forward and approved by the Rural Zoning Commission.
With those amendments or, didn't they have? What are we, yeah, was there any,
There's RBC recommendations.
9 conditions.
yeah, with the non-conditions?
Well, you know, I didn't ask them about that. Are you all okay with the conditions? Okay. Okay. So you want to modify the motion?
Include, no, it's just, yeah.
To approve the application with the conditions put forward by the RPC.
And yes?
Okay, yes. Thank you, you've got your approval.
Efficient government here in Warren County.
Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
Okay, is there anything else for us to do before we go into executive session? Nope, okay, do we have a motion for executive session for personnel matters?
So moved.
And that's hiring and children's services, is that correct?
It's in reference to personnel and children's services.
Is it relating to what?
The Director of Children's Services.
Hiring?
Hiring.
Is that sufficient, Bruce?
Potentially appointing.
Okay. That's sufficient, yes.
Okay,
So
have a motion for that?
So moved.
And yes.
Yes.
There will be action, I'm hoping.
Was this the house they were planning?